Hi Donna, welcome to the World Chess Hall of Fame. It's lovely to see you here and your exhibition looks great. Can you give me an overview of your exhibition?
The show is called Match of the Matriarchs, and it features the life-size chess set that we're sitting inside, and then 8 other Amazon sculptures. So it's a total of 40 sculptures, pretty life-size the way they're exhibited. You kind of walk through. And then in addition, there's a flashlight portrait of me on the chess set. There's also a mini version of the chess set that was created using like 3D scanning and printing. And then some incredible chess sets from the collection and from really notable chess collectors and lenders.
That sounds awesome. And how and why did you connect to the World Chess Hall of Fame?
You know, I played chess as a kid, and then I played chess again with my mentor, my late mentor, Joseph Wheelwright. And I connected to the Chess Hall of Fame when I showed this for the first time about 5 years ago. Shannon Bailey reached out and with an invitation to put this show together with her.
Were you inspired by chess or by the past that you have this chess connection? Did it give you different feeling to make this exhibition?
Yeah, I think chess is such a beautiful game. I mean, I'm not a tournament player, but I have such a respect for the history. I mean, even the history of the chess pieces, and from a maker point of view, the craft of designing these games with all different fantastical opposing teams. It's such a rich history, a really international history of that perspective. So that was kind of what drew me in.
How long have you been making art and how did it all begin?
I've been making art, you know, probably most of my life. I made art as a kid. I got interested in art more formally, you know, through my late mentor. I learned how to carve wood from him. So that was sort of in college. I studied pre-med, and it was very stressful, and like things weren't really falling into place. And so I had a few friends who were art majors who encouraged me to take art classes with them. And for me, it was kind of a stress reliever. And then after college, I took more classes. I connected with my mentor, so I got interested in art more formally. So once I was out of college. So I would say I've been carving for probably over 30 years. Before I was doing wood carving, I was doing all different types of art, more like found object, assemblage, and different types of drawing and printmaking and other types of sculpture.
What drew you to sculpture?
You know, when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, I studied painting and different types of art. But at that point in my educational life, you could only have a few elective classes. So at some point, I wanted to take a foreign language, I wanted to sing, and I couldn't take visual art also. So I did other types of, you know, there's a really rich tradition in my family of crafts and cooking. So there's always this making with my hands and making stuff with my dad or making stuff with my mom or my aunts. So this craft tradition, this making tradition, I think is why I'm so drawn to sculpture, because it's making with my hands. It's conceptual, but it's not purely intellectual. Or I think painting is more intellectual for me than like making something with my hands and having like a tangible object. Like that's just more where I come from in my family.
That's interesting because you mentioned you were pre-med. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose that at first but not art?
So I was interested in pre-med because I really wanted to like do something good in the world, like help, and I wanted to go in the Peace Corps and be a doctor and just try and help, you know, people who are less fortunate. And it just didn't all fall into place. So I don't really think that was my calling. How I got from art or from pre-med to art.
Yeah.
You know, when I got out of college, I wound up with a major in French language. So when I got out of college, I was working still in like halfway house for young women who were in the custody of the state. I was doing youth work, so I was still just trying to figure out what I was gonna do for a career. My mother famously said, you can do whatever you want, but you can't be a teacher, a nurse, or secretary, because those are the only 3 choices. And so you have to pick something else. And I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And so I got into art because I was trying to quit smoking. And so I had a really hard time trying to quit smoking. And one idea was like, if you had something to do with your hands, it would help you quit smoking because you'd be
busy.
Busy.
Your brain is like busy and it doesn't think of anything like once, right? Because
right.
It's just busy. Interesting.
Well, I think the whole like breakthrough spiritually for me, that I quit many times and I couldn't stay quit. I would like pick up my cigarettes again. And so I started to like feel guilty that I was littering like my cigarette butts. And so I thought, like a way to atone for this littering is like, I'll pick them up. And so I started to pick up my cigarette butts and I would pick up all these like pieces of trash and stuff I would find because they were interesting. They were like brake drums or something really interesting that falls off. And I would bring that all back to my apartment and I started to make art. And like that whole process is like, I quit smoking finally. I figured out what I wanted to do with my life, which was I felt very passionate when I was making art.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for, is this like something I felt passionate about. And so I found the thing I was looking for, I figured out what I wanted to do, and I quit smoking, and I found art. Like all
That's awesome.
It was like Close Encounters of the Third Kind when the guy takes all that stuff into his house and makes this random thing in his living room. It was like that for me.
Would you say you have a natural talent and you had it when you were a kid too, but you denied it or you just thought it would be better if you did something else and finally you came back to your talent, like you said, yeah, here's my talent and I need to accept it and I need to use it?
I do think that I came back to, it felt like a rediscovery, the process of learning, you know, making art and coming back to it and even learning how to carve wood and connecting with, you know, the whole career of sort of being an artist. It felt like a homecoming. Not like I was discovering it for the first time. It felt like, oh, I'm connecting with something that I was meant to do. Yeah, it felt more like coming full circle.
Who or what are your major influencers?
Well, a big influence in my life as an artist originally was my grandfather, because he had a friend at the University of Illinois Art Museum. And so I'm the youngest and like the only granddaughter, so I was very spoiled. And I would go visit my grandparents at their farm in Illinois and they would take me to do things. Like it was wonderful. And so one of the things that they were having was like a mummy show. And he was so excited. He was like, I know the curator, we're gonna go behind the scenes. We get to see like, you know, unpacking the art and everything. And so he really turned me on to Egyptian art originally, which still is a major inspiration for me.
You work in different scales, size of sculptures. What size do you prefer the most?
When thinking about like scale of sculptures, you know, the size that I like that's more manageable is the size that's in this exhibition. So somewhere between like 3 and 4 feet tall is pretty ideal. I have made sculptures that are 8 or 10 or 15 feet tall. They have a huge impact. So I like that. I like making something that is bigger than us and that has a monumental scale and that has a presence. But it's more unmanageable. It takes bigger equipment. It takes more people. There's just more of there's a whole process to it. And I'm very immediate. I'm a direct carver, so I find a log and I just tear into it and carve it. I don't like draw or write. Like I just go right at it. So for me, this is very satisfying, this scale.
Aren't you scared of missing a detail? You know, it's so big and you have to go around it like probably a billion times, and sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh my God, something is missing.
With subtractive carving, people think like you could accidentally like cut the head off or something, which it's not really like that. It's not that like accidental prone type thing.
Yeah.
For the most part, you can fix most things with wood, and also it's like the proportions are sort of fungible. If you make the neck smaller, all of a sudden the head looks bigger. If you make it, shorter, and there's ways to mess with the proportions that you can sort of fix anything that looks like it's going wrong. Sometimes I've made sculptures and exhibited them and then thought like, I hate that sculpture, and like taken it and just taken it apart or like carved something else from it. Obviously smaller, but yeah.
Else.
And like, oh, that piece always fell flat for me. It didn't really come alive ever. So I have done that.
In your opinion, what are the relations between art and chess?
Art and chess both have a very rich history and a really global history. Almost every culture and civilization has art and also, games, games of strategy and mind games. In terms of like playing a game of chess, I think there's a lot of strategy just in terms of like having a career as an artist, which I think it's different than like making art. I think there's like the process of making art, and then there's the whole like career sort of thing. And I think having a career as an artist, it's very, you think a lot about, should I do this show? What does this mean for my career? Like, what is this? It's more strategy driven, let's say. I think when I make work, it's not like I think of the outcome of the piece so much. I think the piece has to just work as a sculpture. Like it has to come alive, it has to have a feeling, it has to be working.
Tell us about your chess set, Match of Matriarchs, and why you explore chess in your artwork.
So this chess set began probably 7 years ago. I did a show for the New Bedford Art Museum, which is in a coastal city in Massachusetts. It has a history of whaling and whaling ships. So my idea was to reinterpret kind of the mermaids and the matriarchal figures that are often seen carved on the sides of like whaling vessels and merchant ships. And I want to reinterpret them. I feel like a lot of mermaid imagery is sort of hijacked and sort of hypersexualized, and I wanted to kind of think again about that imagery and like how it could be more powerful or more autonomous. So I made this small grouping, there were 5 of them. And then I thought that it could also be a chess set, that it was these 2 sort of battling sides. There was octopus or squid and whale, and I got really excited about the idea of doing more with it. I just wanted to do more with that concept of like mermaids and ship prow carvings. And so it kind of just became this larger idea of the chess set. And while I was making it, I was thinking a lot about, the history of chess pieces, that they used to be like all male pieces, that it was this military strategy game, and thinking like, well, what kind of chess set would I make? I'm not plotting a war, I don't need to think of it that way, and thinking about the history of the chess queen and just wanting to do something very different. Like if I think of the people in my life who've taught me about life or taught me about strategy or power, it's like my mother, my grandmother, my aunts. And so for me, it was just this idea of these matriarchs. For me, it seemed like a really meaningful way to approach making my own chess set.
That's a great idea. I would never come up why. It's like, wow, so you're deeply connected to this exhibition.
I am, and it's meaningful that it's here, that I spent some time in St. Louis as a kid, so it's meaningful to have this like full circle experience to come back here as an adult. I have a lot of family in Illinois and Indiana and Minnesota, like in the Midwest, so it has a lot of roots here.
Where do you get the wood for your sculptures?
I get most of the wood for my sculptures from my friends, because they know I carve. And so, or even people who don't know me very well, they'll say, oh, my neighbor's taking down a tree, you have to come over and look at this wood. Or different friends who are carving or wood turning, or say, like, I have a piece of wood, but I'm not gonna use it, so it's almost all like salvaged wood or reclaimed wood from my friends.
How did you learn to choose wood in general? How you can say, oh, I can make something out of this or I cannot?
I, you know, when I was in college, I got interested in working with like ceramics and pottery and working on the wheel, and I've done like printmaking. But I always, in the back of my mind, I just thought I always wanted to learn how to carve wood. So really what it is, as a kid, I was way into tree climbing. And so when I grew, after Missouri, we moved to Ohio, and we had this tree in our front yard. When we moved there, it was too short to grab like the branch to even climb the tree. But I got to the point where I could grab the branch and I would climb like all the way to the top of the tree. And I would just sit in the top of the tree, and you could feel like the wind blowing. And for me, like there's just something about that connection with that tree that I think is what led me into wood carving.
Oh. Everything is connected to your childhood. So you were meant to be, you know, an artist. Does it?
I think so. I think I was definitely meant to be an artist.
Can you please tell us about your Amazon series?
My Amazon series is kind of a new series. I mean, I think it came out of this idea of chess and like battling sides of the chessboard. So the Amazons came out of originally looking at like the warrior women on the sides of like Greek vases and ancient Greek and Roman vases, but it really expanded to include researching different women warriors from around the world. So I was very interested in learning kind of the story and histories of women that I just never discovered in my own like college experience or after. And I thought that these stories were just really inspiring, and I wanted to like make my own interpretations, but like I was very, I just thought their stories could be told in a way that would bring them back to life. I thought their stories were really resonating with what's going on right now.
We can see the accessors of your sculptures around us. Could you please tell us the meaning behind them? We can see some shoes, colors, even tattoos.
So for the Amazon sculptures, each one has unique, you know, shoes. Most of them have tattoos. Because I carve wood and I love wood so much, I don't like to paint the whole thing, and I like to have the grain speaking and like having a voice, but I like to have a little bit of color. And so each one just like has that little tiny bit of color generally, like one accent. Or so for Fight and Flight, the inspiration is Lakshmi Bai, who was a historic Indian queen. So the colors, she's like a national heroine. Mm-hmm. So she has a tattoo of a lotus, which is significant of the goddess Lakshmi. But because she's a national heroine, the flag of India is 3 bands. So it's like saffron, white, and green. So like her shoes are green, the wood is like a saffron color, and then the band is white. So it has this like national kind of symbolism for her, for example. For some of the other ones, you know, for Tamara's, she's the inspiration is an ancient Turkish queen. And so she killed Cyrus the Great, and it's often interpreted in art history that it's grisly. Like in art history, it's always these she's always like very delicate, noble queen, and people are like bringing her the severed head of Cyrus the Great, and she dunks it in like a vat of blood because she thought he was so bloodthirsty. Ooh. And so she has blood red boots, and
I love it.
And she has like a skull of Cyrus's head around her neck, more like as a necklace. So
what are some other highlight pieces in your exhibition?
One of the most significant sculptures in the exhibition is the one that the World Chess Hall of Fame commissioned, which it's the Mad Woman of Chess.
I love that one, by the way.
And so this story is that this goes back to the history of the queen, this, you know, the queen piece on the board, that she came on the board and maybe the like 10th century, but in the 15th or 16th century, the rules were rewritten, so she became very powerful. At the same time that there were a lot of powerful queens in like Europe and Russia. And so when she was introduced on the board, there was this backlash against this idea that the queen would be the most powerful piece. And so it was derisively called the Mad Woman of Chess, like as if there was like a wild woman like running around the board because she can move any, I know, isn't that great? Any unlimited number of squares. Yeah. Any unlimited number of squares in any direction. So that's
I
her
wish
power.
I could do that.
I know.
In life, though.
And it helped to speed up the game. But yeah. And so I wanted to bring the Mad Woman of Life to the Mad Woman of Chess to life.
When you showed me, immediately I was like, can I buy it?
Oh yeah, the little ones, yes.
Yeah, I loved them.
Thank you.
And also you mentioned you played chess when you were a kid. Do you still play with friends or family? And do you have a favorite piece?
I'm still not much of a chess player. I think where this comes from is because I'm not a very good chess player, and whenever I've played with like my brother, my art teacher, they always beat me. So this is sort of like what I can do. I can make this chess set. For me, that's like, I don't know if I'll ever like learn how to play chess and be like a great chess player.
Well, if you're around St. Louis, you should make sure to stop by the St. Louis Chess Club. We offer ladies' nights.
Oh, okay.
So it's for ladies only, and you can learn more chess.
Oh, okay. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. What's your relationship with the chess world?
I think I had a lot of fun making a chess set. It really has two queens. And, for example, on this side with the octopus, they all have 8 fingers, but like I think I was drawing on the symbolism of like queens of really any monarchy, that there's this idea that there's a queen that's the figurehead, she's in the public eye, she has to be very formal and follow all the rules. And then there's always someone who's gonna become the queen next. And so she's more behind the scenes. So it's like, she can get her hands dirty, she can do all the dirty work, she can take care of things. So like, her hands are red, but the queen's hands are white, so it's sort of, I had a lot of fun playing with that idea in the making of that particular side of the chessboard.
What do you think about the St. Louis Chess Club campus being the epicenter of the chess capital of the United States?
I'm very proud that, the United States is the host of the World Chess Hall of Fame, and that there is such an opportunity and a focus on, such a beautiful game, like right here in St. Louis, right here in the United States. Like I think that's a huge point of pride.
What are some of your cherished art or chess accomplishments?
I feel very proud that I made this chess set, that it was a labor of love that took many years. I feel very proud to have this show here, to have such a showcase of the chess set with this context of really world-class chess players, really iconic chess sets. I think the context is extremely important for my work. It's something I always imagined, but it had to be here. It couldn't be in Boston or New York or Paris. It couldn't be anywhere else. So it's a very unique place, but it's like the perfect place for this show. It's an enormous honor to have, the Amazon sculptures, my chess set, the chess sets in the collection, and to know that people will come and play tournaments. They'll play with this chessboard, they'll play chess in the gallery with the chessboard, that it will really be activated in a really special way.
Do you see yourself continuing with any chess-related artwork in the future?
I do feel like I could spend the rest of my life making chess sets. It's very open-ended.
I'm glad to hear that. Maybe you should play more chess too.
And learn how to play chess.
Exactly.
Yes, I do need to learn how to play chess.
Donna, we have special video for your exhibition. Would you like to talk about it more?
In this exhibition, I'm exhibiting, in addition to the sculptures, a really special animation and video that it has many layers. Video is often takes a lot of people to make it. So there's a colleague of mine who wrote poetry about 4 of the sculptures, for the Amazon sculptures. And so she's reading those poems, and that's the soundtrack of the animation. And then several other colleagues of mine actually made animation. So they took 4 of the Amazon sculptures and imagined what they would look like if they just like got up and started moving around. And so it's a really interesting kind of pairing of thinking of like sculpture as a static sculpture and wood sculpture, but with 3D animation and graphics. They actually look with wood grain. I mean, they look exactly like the wood sculptures, except they're moving. And so that was a really special project to just imagine, you know, kind of like the chess set is another way to think about the sculptures moving, because they get rearranged in a game, which is, it's actually one of the most beautiful parts of the exhibition. The animation is another way to think about static sculptures moving and coming to life. And it's just a beautiful collaboration with many, many, many talented, very special people.
It seems like it has been a very long process for you, and then do you feel like it's something original in your career that you have been doing, and now you are about to open the exhibition? Do you feel like you will continue on this path?
The animation has taken many years to make and many people to help me make it, and I learned a lot. I don't think I'm going to continue with it.
One was enough, right?
One was enough. I mean, the animation represents, you know, 4 or 5 years worth of work. So it's an incredibly labor-intensive process, and it's not really skills that I have. And so it relies on like an enormous team of people to do it, and time. And I think it happened at the perfect time, like during COVID, when people were very interested in working online and collaborating online, because it was sort of the only way you could work together. And so I think it just happened in a really interesting period of time where now that the world has opened up again, you know, there's so many more competing interests right now for myself and my collaborators that I think it was just a one-time opportunity to imagine something together.
Donna, your exhibition sculptures are only women pieces, and I love them. I love how great they look and how inspiring they are. And I like the backstory, but could you please tell me why you chose that, and then why, when it comes to chess, you decided to do that?
So all of the sculptures in the exhibition are women sculptures. Oftentimes you hear writers say that they write the books that they want to read. For me, I make the art that I want to see when I go into museums. And I think that, you know, historically there haven't been as many just like empowering or inspiring sculptures of women made by women. I think historically a lot of imageries of women and women's bodies are made by men, so with a different gaze upon women's bodies. So I'm really interested in the idea of women like making autobiographical work and as the subject of the work. And I think that comes through. That's a huge motivation in like the kind of work I make.
Donna, you're the first woman having a solo show at the World Chess Hall of Fame. How do you feel about it?
I'm extremely honored to have a solo show at the World Chess Hall of Fame and to be the first woman to be honored with the solo show. One thing that we discovered, you know, working with Shannon Bailey is we were creating the brochure, and one of the writers is Kate McQuaid, who's the Boston Globe art critic. And informally, doing our own research, we also believe that this is the first and maybe only female, you know, life-size chess set in the world.
Wow.
So it feels very, again, I think the connection with the World Chess Hall of Fame, you know, working with someone like Shannon Bailey, who's amazing, who has extremely deep knowledge of chess, and amazing experience curating exhibitions and all the ways to think about chess. I think the World Chess Hall of Fame is just such a unique cultural institution that it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
What are the exhibitions on view dates?
My exhibition, Match of the Matriarchs and Other Amazonamakis, will be on view from February 15th to September 15th, 2024. And to learn more, if you're not in St. Louis, you can visit the World Chess Hall of Fame website, and it's worldchesshof.org.